V3 Media.
What time are you there?
It's 10 to 9, so not too early for us.
So hello, welcome to this episode of the Interviews with me, Ian Barstow, and today I am joined by Simon Dunn, who is well known for being the first openly gay openly gay bobsleigh team member. We will get onto that shortly as well. So hello Simon, how are you?
Thank you for having me. It's nice and early here in Australia, so I have to thank you for staying up.
So yes, you are now living in Australia, and it's the next day over there. So how is the next 24 hours for me going to be? Can you tell me that? Does it work like that?
There's probably going to be more issues with Harry and Meghan, and then there'll be more coronavirus issues. And I'm sorry.
How is so we're recording this on Wednesday, the 10th of March. Is when we're recording this. How is Australia and the COVID situation over there? You're not in lockdown anymore, are you?
No, so we've been really fortunate here because our states ordered police themselves, so we went straight into what the UK are doing as a stage 4 lockdown initially, and the rest of the world were saying how dictatorship it was, but my state alone hasn't had a locally transmitted case in, I think it's 51 days. Things are returning back to normal very slowly. We still can't dance in nightclubs, but we can go out and have a drink as long as we're sitting down. So life is pretty good there, and it's hard to watch what's going on in the rest of the world when we're lucky enough to be on a little island all the way down the bottom.
Well, because I saw you posted a picture on your social media recently of Mardi Gras in a big stadium, and yes. I looked at that and I thought, I'm not jealous in any way whatsoever that I'm stuck at home in winter and you're out and you're being happy and you're partying, even though you all sat down, but you are partying. So yeah, it's hopefully, fingers crossed, in about another 2 months we might be there here in the UK.
I've had a lot of friends in the UK message me when you guys went into stage 4 lockdown complaining. And I was like, you all went to Mykonos last summer. You can't tell me that you got to go on a European holiday and you're complaining that you're now locked down. And like, I have not left my state for over a year now, and I'm able to go on a holiday this weekend. So I'm excited to go on a plane for the first time in a year.
It's just, it's crazy, isn't it? How all of this started pretty much a year ago. Around about now, most countries were starting to get impacted more and more by it. And how quick that year has gone, but also how long it feels since we were able to do what we wanted to do.
Well, it's definitely dragged out. They're saying Mardi Gras was the last major event in the world before the world pretty much locked down, and then it's also now become the first as the world slowly starts to open up, hopefully.
I've never been to Australia. It's one of those places I always say that and New Zealand I want to go to at some point. But Mardi Gras is so well known for being such a big celebration of LGBTQ and all of the happiness that goes around that. Is it still as fun as it always looks whenever you see pictures of it?
It's definitely a lot of fun. This year was restricted a little bit. It had to be within a stadium where people could remain seated. Generally, it will go up the main street, Oxford Street, which is traditionally the gay hub of Sydney. But unfortunately, they couldn't risk having 500,000 people on the side of the road within close proximity. So they put it in a stadium. Seats were sold sporadically rather than person to person. And it worked out really well.
Good. I do want to get to Australia at some point. It's always one of those.
It's a long way.
Well, yes, it's 24 hours, isn't it, pretty much?
Basically, you get a layover somewhere and then you've got to get on another long haul flight.
Well, you have been, you've lived in quite a few countries, I believe, reading some information. Yes. So you were born in Australia in a town called, and I am going to apologise now if I get the name of this wrong, but it's Wollongong. Is that right? Was that close?
Sorry, Wollongong.
Wollongong, okay.
Name, but I was born in Goulburn, which is actually a sheep farming town, but I grew up in Wollongong, which is just off the coast of, just down south from Sydney on the beach, which is lovely.
It looked really nice. I had a quick look of some pictures of it, and it looked like a nice seaside town. to grow up in?
It's technically a city. We'll run with that, but but the area I grew up is definitely a beach town.
So you were born in 1987. So you are 33 years old. July 27th. Not long after me.
Getting on.
I've got 10 years on you. So well, no, not 10 years actually. 5 years. So I'm aging myself. So yeah, you grew up. Now Australia is always one of those places where it always seems quite liberal, but I think am I right in saying it's quite a conservative country?
Correct. So unfortunately, Australia, we've just gone through a series of prime ministers who were very against marriage equality and those kind of things. So we were actually one of the last Western countries to have marriage equality come into place. Although we are a country which is traditionally laid back, we do have old values and those kind of things that unfortunately do tend to hold us back.
So what was it like? So you actually, let's go back. So you grew up in sort of quite an inner city. You loved rugby. Rugby was your sport. You were a very sporty person. So when did you sort of first start to think, actually, I'm attracted to men or boys, or when did that start to come into your thought process, and you sort of start to think, I feel a little different to the normal?
All my teammates. I don't admit it much, but I actually grew up playing rugby league. I play rugby now, but I try and brush that one under the rug. So I think the first time I can really look back would have been about 12 or 13. And then a couple of years after that, it was something I really, really tried to suppress. I was one of those people who would, not religious at all, but I'd try and pray the gay away every single night before I went to bed, just because I couldn't fathom the idea of being a gay man or growing up, living a life as a gay man. So it wasn't until I got to about 16 where I started to come out that I had an option where sport, the two things that were such a massive part of my life was rugby league and my sexuality. And the only one of those that I realized I could change was sport. So at that age was around the age where I gave up sport completely until I was about 24. Moved to Sydney, went to too many clubs, drank too many beers, and danced on too many podiums, I think.
So what was your coming out like? Was it accepted? Was it not accepted? Because obviously it's something that every gay person goes through. They go through the process of coming out to friends, family, everybody, and then you do it every day as you meet new people.
You do. Coming out is definitely one of those things that you have to do for the rest of your life every time you start a new job or anything. I'm fortunate now that I just bring up Wikipedia and show them to get away from me. But it was a process. So I, like a lot of people, came out as bisexual. My mum took it really difficult. She ended up kicking me out for a while. My sports teams became a hostile environment for me. So for me at the time, it felt like my world was completely falling apart. What I had thought would happen before I accepted who I was actually coming into fruition, and I questioned whether it was worth it. We all have thoughts about whether taking our own life is an option. What can I do to make things better? But eventually I ended up moving to Sydney, and even now, it still took a few years to even accept myself fully as a gay man. But now at 33, I can say being gay is probably the greatest gift that I've been given. It's paved a life and a career, and made me the person I am today. So it's such a cliche thing to say that it does get better, but it does. We're here now. Got you up at 10 p.m. at night and chatting on a podcast, and the reason I'm here is because of my sexuality. So, I can't complain.
I think so. When I came out when I was 30, I was quite late in coming out. everybody knew, I think. But anyway, you accept it yourself.
Why doesn't he have a girlfriend?
yeah. Why have you never brought a girlfriend or introduced us? I think it's one of those things. You accept it yourself first. You've got to do that, and then as soon as you do that, you've then got to, at the right time for you. That's when you do it. Never be forced to do it. Always do it when it's right for you. But it is that massive weight just lifted off because you can be who you want to be, and you don't have to hide that.
Yeah, that's just it. I think prior to me coming out, the stress of actually hiding who I was much far worse than the repercussions of losing friends, not playing sport, having issues with my own family. The stress and the sadness that I had prior to coming out was far worse than what actually happened afterwards.
Because there's a massive issue of mental health in people that are in LGBTQ. It is a massive issue for people struggling with mental health issues that are gay. And I know it's one of those things that you've struggled with in your life. You've had problems with anxiety and your mental health. How is your mental health now, and sort of what helps you to fight those anxiety issues and the mental health issues? What do you use to improve your mental health at the moment?
So for me, I had a bit of a relapse of mental health issues when I moved back to Australia. It's an adjustment disorder. So basically, to explain my story, I'd been overseas representing Australia. Things were going great. Moved to London, had an amazing partner. My career was fantastic. And upon moving back to Australia, I ended up at 31, no money, sleeping on my mum's couch in a small country town. And because of this, it brought on anxiety and a depressed state. And I had to go see a doctor about it. And he was like, he diagnosed me with what the issue was. And he goes, your body has had to deal with such a dramatic change that your brain is not actually finding coping mechanisms for it. And he goes, before we put you on any medication, he's like, you need to create the habits that you had in London and Canada. The things that you're doing with your life, you need to recreate those to actually get your brain thinking that this is normal and that you're able to get through it. So this obvious thing for me was to go back to the gym, force myself out of bed in the morning, go to the gym. I was chatting to my partner every day on this is before the pandemic, so not Zoom, it was on Skype or FaceTime. It was just simply about creating habits, forcing myself to get out of bed, make my bed, go to the gym, have a good breakfast, and just think towards a more positive outcome.
Because I read somewhere years ago that you should always make your bed in the morning, because if you never achieve anything else in that day, you've always achieved one thing by making your bed.
I'm a massive advocate for that. I never used to do it in my early 20s, and when I became an athlete, it was something you have a schedule, and it needs to be you stick to it. So it became one of my habits then. And just before we got on this podcast, I was devastated that I hadn't had time to make my bed. So the second we're done here, I'll be back in my room, tidying up my bed.
Yeah, it is one of those things, and I've done it for years, and every morning I will, even if I'm in a hotel, and you only stop in one night and you leave, and I will always make the bed. And it's just one of those things.
It doesn't take much. You just straighten the pillows, throw the duvet over, and you're good to go. But mentally, when you come home to a made bed, I think for me personally, it's so much nicer than coming home to a mess of a bed. So. And
then you get annoyed when the dog has jumped on it during the day when you've been out and completely messed it up.
I haven't got a dog, but I'm trying to get one at the moment. I'm just on Instagram with my partner. I keep sending him videos of dogs, hoping he'll get the hint, but he's not.
What type of dog?
We're debating it. Obviously, we're going to be stereotypical gays and get a Frenchie because we do live in an apartment. So we don't want something too big. I wanted a more active dog, but it's just within an apartment. I think it's the nicest thing to do is not not get a giant Alsatian or something.
So a message to the partner: get a dog, basically.
Oh, he'll listen to this and he'll get the hint. Finally.
So let's go back to the sports side of it. So rugby league. I'll be honest, I prefer watching rugby league to rugby union, but that's by the by. I think the game's a bit faster, but I know that's a controversial subject of the two. So you'd left sport for a while, and then how did you get into bobsleigh? Because it's not a sport that you automatically think of being the first choice for somebody to do. So how did you get into being into bobsleigh, particularly Australian bobsleigh team?
That's very true. So basically, whenever you meet anybody on the bobsleigh circuit, the first question you have is, what sport did you come from? There's only a very small group of people that actually start in bobsleigh, and they're generally Germans or like Eastern Europeans. But for me, I got into bobsleigh. I moved to Canada because I started playing rugby again here in Sydney for the Sydney Convicts, which is an inclusive team. Started playing rugby with them and kind of got the urge to, I'm back doing what I love. I'm happy finally to go and see how far I could go as an athlete. So I moved to Canada, joined the local league there, played for a team called the Calgary Canucks. This was just a regular team. Canada's so liberal that you don't need to be in an inclusive team because everybody's so nice, and I didn't get any incidents of homophobia within the club, within the entire country. So I played 2 games with them. First game, red carded. Canadian rugby is much softer than suburban rugby here in Sydney, and there's not as many Islanders who take you out in Canada, and so you don't have to be as aggressive. Second game, I scored 3 tries in the first 10 minutes and was gassed after that. After the game, we're in the clubhouse having a beer, and a gentleman tapped me on the shoulder, and he just asked if I would ever consider trying this sport because I was fast and strong. That man was Heath Spence, who had just gotten back from Sochi, because he was the pilot of the Australian team. And so I went to Canada to play rugby, played 2 games, and then transitioned straight into training for bobsleigh.
And so I presume bobsleigh it's very much about the power at the start. So when you push off, it's that almost sprinter type build and power that you need to be able to push. But so I'd imagine rugby is very good for that, because rugby is very much, you've got to have the strength to withstand being bashed around by the men.
Yeah.
And then you've got to have the speed when you've got a gap and you can run to the other side.
Yeah, that's just it. So I was a brakeman on the Australian team, and my job was the first 30 meters to get the 200 kilo sled moving as fast as you can.
Is that how much they weigh?
Over those 30 meters. Yeah.
Blimey.
They're not light. Then you get into the 4-man, which are just basically pushing a bus down the hill. They're awful. And then you've all got to jump in the bus when it only has 1 seat. Basically, yeah. So my job was to get it to going as fast, as quick down the hill to start off with. Once that's done, I jump in and pray. And then you've got the pilot who will guide it down the best line of the track to get to the bottom quicker.
And what's it like being in? Because I can't imagine what it's like to hurtle down the track at 80, 90, over 100 mile an hour on some of them, are they?
Yeah. So the fastest one, I'm not sure. Not sure of the conversion, but it's 150 kilometers an hour in Whistler.
Blimey.
So that'd be about 90 miles, I think.
And it's literally you're in your fiberglass tube about an inch off the ice surface. Yeah,
pretty much. So someone said it's like being in a washing machine with hammers. It's not a smooth ride. If you tap a wall at those kind of speeds, you feel it. It's fun the first time. First time you do it, exciting. When you're doing it 2-3 times a day, not so exciting. You learn to feel when a run is good, so you can kind of predict when you're going to hit a wall or you're going to go upside down. So you know when to hold on just that little bit tighter. But yeah, it's an experience.
Did you crash?
A few times, yes. It comes with the territory. You're not a bobsledder until you crash.
And what's that like? Because I've seen a few crashes of Bob. You know, when you go onto YouTube and all of a sudden YouTube will just suddenly recommend a completely random video, and you'll watch it, and then for the next 2 weeks you've got, oh, you enjoyed that. You've got all of these videos to watch.
I used to send those videos to my mum when I started. She hated it. Why are you sending me these?
This is what your son is doing, putting his life on the line.
Aren't you proud?
So you didn't get any. There was no issues because you were the first openly gay bobsleigh athlete.
Yeah.
Did you get any? So there was no sort of homophobia, nothing like that in that sport.
So before I even tried out for the team, I made sure everyone within the Australian team knew that I was gay. I wasn't willing to be rejected like I had, that 16-year-old me had playing rugby league. So it was straight on the table. There's been articles saying that I came out already whilst I was on the team, and I'd come out when I was 16 and made the team when I was 26, I think. I was very out. There was nothing hidden. There's traditionally in professional sports, because everyone's there being professional, they're not going to say anything to you. But you hear the whispers. I had friends who within other teams who would come and talk to me about what other coaches or people had said. I had articles written about me in Russia. At the time, I was just excited to have something written about me in Russia. I was like, ooh. But I think the article said that bobsleigh's a man's sport and that I'm ruining the sport.
Dear.
So that's Russia for you.
Yes, yes.
Probably not allowed there now, but I've ruined their sport. But yeah, it was just everything was whispers. You're always going to be the gay athlete. You're never the athlete. I think that's the hardest thing is you're always pigeonholed into this category, and traditionally that category is seen as lesser or not quite as athletic, and you spend the whole time trying to beat that. But then it became bigger than me. It's also something that I wanted people to know because I wanted to make a difference. I had one of my coaches come up and thank me. She's a lesbian, just saying that she hopes that doing what I'm doing will change the patriarchy of an old European traditional mentality that's in the sport.
Do you think we'll get to the point where, because obviously we have, there is a few high profile out gay sports people. So Gareth Thompson in rugby, Tom Daly in diving, and that's I'm trying to say. I know
Gus Kensworthy.
Yes, Gus Kensworthy in
Adam Rippon.
Yes, in diving as well, of course. Do you think we still don't have for the UK Premiership football player that's come out? We still don't have. I follow Formula One. There's no major motor racing style that I'm aware of that has come out. And obviously, through the law of averages and through the law of how many gay people there are in the world, there will be lots of gay people in these sports in high-profile positions. So do you think we'll get to the point where it won't matter that someone is gay?
So I've got a few theories on this one. So statistically speaking, there should be 10% of all athletes, professional athletes in the world should be gay. But I think because sport is inherently so unwelcoming for gay men traditionally, that we drop out of sport earlier. So that in itself is going to bring that 10% stat down to a very small handful of men who were willing to put up with it or didn't have any issues with homophobia. So that 10% is now probably 1%.
Yeah.
And then you've got to put it into like Premier League. These players are on a couple of $1 million a year. And yes, it would be lovely for them to be the champion, be the face and come out. But when sport is so based on sponsorship, it's proven that gay athletes are less likely to be sponsored simply because of their sexuality. When it comes to you earning so much money, no one's going to sponsor you. The fans are going to turn on you. Would you jeopardize a couple of £1 million a year just to come out? So it's kind of a catch-22. It's a tough one. I know personally, like I said before, I was already out, so couldn't put me back in the box. But I know personally, if I wasn't out and I was doing a sport where I was earning a few £1 million a year, I don't know if I would come out. And I think it's unfair on those athletes too, because they know when they do come out, people are going to judge them for not coming out at the time. But it's their lives. They've got to look after themselves, and everyone's on their own journey. And the community need to kind of have more of an understanding of that.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It is, as I said earlier, you've got to decide to do it on your own terms and never do it on the terms of somebody else or a story that is going to break or anything like that. So are you conscious of? So obviously you have fame, you're known. Do you ever sort of feel that people that you're around or people that you meet, do you ever have that second thought where you say, actually, are they interested in me, or are they interested in the fame, or are they going to spill on me? How do you keep that?
I wish I had fame that paid bills. You have to get that one. Unfortunately,
Instagram doesn't pay.
I wish. Bobsleigh, no, you don't really get paid for that job. Yes, no, you learn to keep a good core group of friends. My rugby mates, like, they're going to be honest with me, and they call me out on everything. So you learn to value real friends over acquaintances. If I ever get famous enough that I'm like a Hemsworth or something, then I guess I'd have to be a bit more cautious of those kind of people. But if anyone's just being friends with me because I'm known, they're not going to get anything. They're just going to have me pushing some equality in sport, or some HIV, trying to break down the stigma for HIV on them. So they're just going to get the causes that I'm passionate about and have to deal with me ranting about those.
So talking of the HIV side, obviously we've just had out It's a Sin. Have you seen It's a Sin?
Yes. I cried from episode 2.
Colin. Oh.
Yeah. That was episode 3.
Is that 3? Right.
Yeah. Number 2 was when they were talking about what they want to do in 10 years. And I was like, I know how this ends.
And it's
not going to happen.
That final episode, I interviewed Michael Cashman, who played Colin in EastEnders, and is now Lord, and was the first gay kiss on British soap. And I said to him that final episode, from the start, I had that lump in the throat, and then it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. By the second half, I was like, breathe in, and then the bit
I was doing the ugly that cry where your body's moving, not just your chest.
Yes, and then the bit at the beach was the bit that hit me sucker punch in the chest, when the mum tells the friend that he's not there, and it was so beautifully done in the fact that it just went silent, and that was it. I went, oh my god, literally, oh my god, and then that was it. I was crying. But the actual program itself, I think, has done an amazing job. There was a story out in the UK that the Terence Higgins Trust have said that HIV testing has gone up because of It's a Sin. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have not forgotten about HIV, but it's not seen as so much of thank God it's no longer a death sentence. People think, oh, you get it, you take a pill, you'll be fine. So it obviously isn't the case. It's still a massive issue. So what are you doing for the HIV side of it? What organisations are you involved in?
Further on with what you're just saying, I actually messaged Russell T Davies about it, just saying, because I think one of the best things It's a Sin done is shared the story of a generation to the newer generation. I feel like even my generation, it wasn't our problem. It's kind of been forgotten. And it was funny, I messaged him and I was like, oh, I just wanted to thank you, because as you just mentioned, I work with a lot of Hiv charities. I messaged him like, thank you for sharing that message. And he wrote back, oh my God, Simon Dunn. And I like fangirled. I was fanning myself and I was like, oh, the fact you even know who I am. And he goes, oh, you're great. And I was like, it's the opposite. So I've screenshotted it and I'm going to leak it to the Daily Mail. But yeah, so as you're saying, but So I've worked with Terence Higgins Trust in the UK. They're a fantastic organisation, and they do amazing work. And as you said, shows like this show the work that they do, and how important it is. And then also here in Australia, I work with a charity called Bobby Goldsmith Foundation. With this foundation, it's good because they've allowed me to go out and actually do client like outreach.
Yeah.
So they will support people living with HIV, and on varying levels, different things, from even having a cup of tea with them because they're homebound and they can't have anyone come in, to going out and helping them pay their bills. So once I had the opportunity to work with them, I was like, good, because it's nice to be the face of a campaign or something, but it's also nice to be able to go down and hear their stories. And it's one of the most eye-opening things I've had to do, because you hear their stories, and I think that's why I cried a lot, and It's a Sin. But it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done for a charity is just having a chat, meeting these people that had to live through the AIDS crisis. And out of my friendship circles I've only ever known one person who died of who had HIV and ended up dying because of a AIDS-related illness. But just to see these people that are still HIV positive for 30 years and still kicking and still able to make jokes, and
we've come so far in the treatment for HIV, and the treatment, if you've got it, the PrEP, which is available in certain places in this country now, but it's another great leap. But it is still a very serious condition to have, and obviously the main thing is the safe sex. The practice, the safe sex is the main message. You don't want to get anywhere, be in a situation where you can catch it. Just practice safe sex. And I think that message, particularly in the UK, I think that's slightly gone down now. It's the sort of people think it's not so easy to catch or whatever. It's
the reason I work with HIV charities. No, but I work with a lot of charities, but one of the main causes that I try and campaign with is HIV. And because of this, the reason for this is I'd come back. You had to come back every year to Australia to try out for the national team, and then fly back to Canada and start training and competing. And I used to always stay one more weekend, and that was the weekend where I'd go out clubbing. I spent 12 months in Canada sliding down hills and lifting weights, and I was like, I need to go out for a dance. And I remember being in a hotel, going down a lift, and I think I had 5 friends with me, and it's obviously pre-COVID when you could have more than 2 people in a lift. And I looked around, and I was the only person in that lift who wasn't HIV positive. These are friends that I'd known since I was 18. So at that point would have been like 10 years. These are people who weren't HIV positive before I left. And I was like, shit, the message isn't getting through somewhere here. For some reason, my circle of friends, my generation, we just seem to be ignoring how serious HIV is, and that it's still an issue, and this is why we are where we are now. So I was like, basically straight from there, I started working with HIV charities to just try and, 1, raise awareness that it is still an issue, and 2, break down the stigma. I think the gay community, we should be the most educated, but we're also the most uneducated, and we can be the worst when it comes to understanding and accepting those who are HIV positive.
Yeah, it is, and it's I think a lot of from when it first came out, and we had the massive scare campaign, and it was the gay plague, and it was only affecting gay people, and now obviously a lot of, particularly in Africa and places like that, a lot of the people that are diagnosed are women, and it's all of that sort of stuff. I think it does need more of perhaps a bit of a push to get that safe sex message out, because I think with things like
that's just it. That statistically speaking, the fastest growing group are the baby boomers, straight couples who are even now who didn't have the safe sex message because they were 20 and got married. They're now divorced and having casual relationships, or the husband's popped off to Thailand for a boys' trip, and then come back and also had sex with his wife. So these are communities that are missing message. Refugees, for example, they're also coming from countries where it's a large issue. and they haven't had the same message. So it's yes, the face of HIV transmission might be changing slightly, but it's still a massive issue in communities.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those areas that is sort of difficult to get the message out sometimes to people. And I don't think it helps that in this country, in England in particular, the sex education side of in school is so, we can't talk about that because it's all blah 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 blah. They're too young and all that sort of stuff. It's like, no, teach them at the right age, but teach them young about safe sex and all of the stuff that goes with it, and then they have the message for the rest of their life, rather than, oh no, let's shy away and then not talking about it.
Let them look it up on the internet and find out how to do it.
Yes.
Then get some horrible ideas.
Yeah. Your Instagram, social media, is obviously. How do you feel loads of pressure on things like social media to put out the pictures that people want to see, or people are sort of. So if you put out a picture of you, I don't know, eating your breakfast, and then you put out a picture of you stood in the pool in your swimming trunks, and the one eating the breakfast gets 1,000 likes, the other one gets 10,000 likes. How much pressure is there on you to match the image that people expect of you, rather than sort of being?
This is a big thing I noticed when I was competing in bobsleigh. So I'd post a photo of me one day representing Australia, like the greatest achievement I've ever done to this stage. Hopefully I can do something else. I'd post a photo of that one day, and then a couple of days later it'd be me in my underwear or something. The photo of me representing Australia would get a couple of thousand likes. The one of me in my underwear would get 5 times what it did. And it frustrated me at the time, because I was like, these people are following me because I'm the gay athlete, but they don't seem to care about any of the athleticism stuff. But now that I've matured a little bit, I see the value in being able to use social media to post about the work I do. Yes, a photo of me working with an HIV charity, or of me doing something with sport, it's not going to get as many likes, but it's because of the other stuff that it's been able to be noticed. And through that, I've been able to post articles, do interviews like this, and to share my story and hopefully continue to do the work that I do. So as annoying as it is, it comes with the territory of social media, I think.
Do you have that reminder on your phone to sort of say, "Oh, I need to post a picture to Instagram"?
No,
it's not quite that bad.
My manager would generally, he likes me. He's like, you need to post something this often, and my life's not that interesting. Like, what am I going to post? I spent a year not being able to go anywhere. So he's going to post a picture of me training someone at the gym, or like doing volunteer work. It's like, there's not that much I can show you, and until I'm rich, there's not going to be much more. I'm going on a holiday this weekend, so you might get a photo of me on a beach.
Jealous, not that you're on a beach. Definitely not jealous. Do you think things like social media, because they are massive, and it does give, it can give people an unrealistic representation of what people are like? So obviously, if I open my Instagram now, and I go onto the follow you page, or the for you,
I've just got mine is mostly cars and puppies.
Mine seems to be seems to be shirtless men, pretty much everything. And obviously,
I've got at the moment.
You look at that, and every picture that you see on there is all of these sort of really.
I've got a mixture of puppies and shirtless workout. So, there's a bum there. Jeez. Oh, it's a dog's bum actually. Look, it's a puppy.
It's a
Look at that little thing. Someone wants a dog, clearly.
Yeah, it knows what you're searching for. Do you think that's we have to be careful about how much that does show younger people an unrealistic expectation of what you should be like? It's
definitely. So I've when I went into my depressed state 2 years ago, I was posting old photo shoot photos because I wanted everyone to think that my life was grand and everything was great. But at the time, I was at home, devastated, crying myself to sleep, thinking that I had done something wrong with my life and I was a failure. And then I eventually said, you know what, I've been completely honest on social media in my life thus far, that I need to continue doing that. And the image we all put out on social media is how we want people to perceive us. It's not. You need to take social media with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because we're all here being like, oh, this person's life's amazing, and we don't really know what's going on, and it's probably not. They're probably sitting there worrying about what people are commenting on their photos and liking their photos, and spending more time doing that than actually enjoying life. So I think we need to look at it as it is that they're putting forward the face that they want you to see, not actually what's going on.
See, my social media is mainly my photography, so I do motorsport photography when we're allowed to go back out to motorsport circuits. And you'll post a picture, and it's like, I think that's a really good picture, and you stick it up there, and then you look, and it's like 10 likes, and it's like,
yeah.
And you sort of think, why am I getting so obsessed with how many likes I get on Instagram for a picture? Because there's literally hundreds of millions of pictures every day. You've got to try and... It's unlikely, especially with it doesn't show you in order now. It shows you what it thinks you want to see. It's unlikely you're going to get the loads of likes on a photo. It's. I sometimes think I'd just delete social media, but then it's like, no, I enjoy it. Are you on TikTok?
Good. Yes, I joined the other week.
Prepare to be addicted. is all I'm going to say.
But it's just shit, isn't it?
There is
stuff on it. You just look at it, you're like, what is the point?
There is a lot, but then
18-year-old dance around to a song.
But then 2 hours later, still there.
There's that,
swiping,
just clicking through.
They're only 30 seconds each, and you've watched 2 hours worth. Yeah, it's a dangerous game. Is TikTok? So what's next for you then? What's next for your for you as Simon Dunn as the brand, Simon Dunn as the person? Where are you seeing yourself going?
So right now I'm just working on a few. I've obviously continuing my ambassadorship with the charities I work with, so Bobby Goldsmith Foundation and Give Out Day. We're going to move forward with that. There are a few more in the pipeline to actually work with more sports focused kind of advocacy work, and just trying to continue doing that kind of stuff. My personal training side, I'm looking to release an online programming app. That's not the fun stuff. The other stuff is like that. I prefer to do advocacy work, so just working more on that kind of stuff. Nothing too exciting. I'm stuck in the country, so I'll see you all in a few years.
Are you still or when are you allowed to play rugby now? Is that gone? Are you allowed to play that again?
We were allowed to play last year. We got a total of 7 games. But we are in pre-season training. Even though I've retired 4 seasons in a row, I'll have another run. I am training for another year.
The team you play for is the Convicts, did you say?
Yes, the Convicts.
So it's an inclusive team.
Yep.
And by that, I presume it means that you accept straight and gay people.
Yeah.
And what league is that? Do you play in a normal league with I'm not going to say normal teams, in a normal league with different teams that aren't sort of classed as inclusive, so to say?
Yeah, so we play in suburban rugby, subbies rugby here in Sydney. If we were to only verse gay teams, it would be us playing ourselves every weekend. So that might not surprise you. There's not that many inclusive teams. But yeah, so we play suburban rugby here in Sydney, and that varies. It can be teams from all over Sydney, giant islanders who just run you around in the park and make you question why you play rugby, to little rich white boys who just run around you because they're 20 and you're 30. But it's a lot of fun. It's just good to go out and have a run.
Because rugby is always one of those sports that if you watch, so I don't know, Six Nations, they can be absolutely kicking 7 bells out of everybody. And there's fights and there's arguments, and then the tackles, some of them you just think, how do you get up from that? And then as soon as the match is over, it's always one of those sports where it just seems to end on the field. It doesn't carry on. And I also like the fact that the the referees are listened to. I hate it in football when a referee gives a decision and all the players crowd round. In rugby, the referee would just go, put the hand up.
Yeah.
Go
your
away.
Teammates would, if you spoke to a ref like that, the coach would pull you off, or your teammates kick you off. Rugby's big on respect. You even on the field, like obviously where you get the occasional homophobic comment, but generally if a player does that, his own teammates will be the ones that call him out on it. Never even fathom speaking to a ref like they do in football.
Who was the rugby player that had the, what was his name? The one that had said that gay people are going to hell unless you repent. That was it. Yes.
He's trying to come back in to play here, and unfortunately wanted to play for the team that I support as a child. We just can't get rid of him. Saying that, every time he says something, I'm more than happy to call him out on it. He's blocked me on social media, so he can't see it. So every time he tries to come back, I have to go to the media and be like, go away. He's an old man now.
It's one of those people you used to think, and again, it's that religious thing. It's that, I'm not sure. Are you still a religious person? Would you class yourself as a religious person? No, not at all. It's I just don't I don't get the fact that religion is used to sort of against gay people a lot. It's against our religion. Well, yeah, so is sowing two different seeds in there, and you can send your wife to slavery.
Well, I think that's the issue with a lot of religion, is they pick and choose the sins that don't suit them. Anything that does suit them, that's not a sin anymore. And the irony is that Jesus in religion was accepting, help the poor, help the sinners, help thieves. But yet now religion is doing the opposite and is unaccepting, judgmental, and persecutes those who might need help. But yet they don't want to help them.
Is Australia's quite a religious country, isn't it? It's more religious than I always thought it was. Is it? Is it changing, or is it still a very religious one?
We're discreetly religious. Like Christmas here is just a day for us to get drunk and those kind of things. There's religion here, but as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of religion managed to find its way into politics, and that's why marriage equality didn't come through. We're not overtly religious, but it's here. We've got Hillsong, Justin Bieber's church started here, and those kind of things.
Justin Bieber's church, is that his? I didn't know he was.
Yeah, it's with Hillsong.
Oh, okay.
It's like a church. They sing a lot, and right. Very cultish.
Another reason not to like him. So, when did marriage equality come in? What year was it?
It was when I was in London, so 2017, 2018.
And marriages didn't dissolve around the country. The country didn't collapse because marriage equality.
We did have a massive fire. Awkward. And then we had a flood. And then we had a pandemic. So you tell me. Maybe we're wrong.
I always remember a UKIP MP or MEP said something about, all this bad weather, it's all the gays' fault. And I was like, if only we had the power. We'd have sun all year round and then snow on Christmas Day.
Maybe God does like us.
Yeah. Yes, very true. Very true. Okay, brilliant. So, Simon, thank you so much for joining us on the interviews.
Thank you for having me.
Where can we find out about you? What are your social media and your websites?
So anything by Simon Dunn is all my hashtags or social media handles. You can see the work mainly on Facebook if you want to read articles, and if you want to creep on me, Instagram's the go-to.
like.
Yeah, thank you.
Russell Tovey liked that one. I like that one as well.
Yeah.
If you know Russell, can you send him a message? I want to do an interview with him, and I can't get past
I used to play rugby with his ex.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. That's always good.
I forgot to ask. I know we meant to end it. I forgot to ask. Queer as Folk. Was that one of the first programs you watched that sort of you watched it and you went, oh? That's what happens.
It was. I didn't watch the UK version. I watched the American or filmed in Canada version.
It's a lot more. It's quite a bit more not graphic, but it's quite a bit more racy than the UK version, I think, isn't it? From what I've seen of parts.
Yeah. It's a bit much. I used to watch it as when I was like, what would have been like 14, listening for mum coming down the stairs.
TV turned down.
Turning the channel.
Yeah.
I'm not watching that. And my room is so big and my TV was right near the door. If she'd just gotten, I'm sure she heard it.
If only you had your AirPods then.
Is watching. I know. We didn't have that kind of technology back then. How long ago was that? It was like 20 years ago. God.
Yeah, I say Queer as Folk was watching it upstairs in my bedroom, TV turned down, making sure no one would hear.
I remember watching it and being like, oh, gay lives aren't this dramatic. They are.
Yeah, definitely.
That was exactly what gay lives are like.
And I was always a fan of Charlie Human, or whatever his name is, ever since, after that first scene in the UK one.
Yeah, understandable.
Simon Dunn, thank you so much for joining us on the interviews.
Thank you for having me.
These Three Media.